Shalom uvracha. We will wait, slow it down just a bit, just to wait for a few more people that are going to be joining us, Be'ezrat Hashem. And we will start very, very soon. Okay. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam shehakol nihya bidvaro. Shalom to everybody watching. This shiur should be dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Haim ben Yehuda Halevi, Batya bat Shimon, and it should also be for the refuah shelema of all those that are sick, that need a refuah shelema, all those that are stricken with the virus, that Hashem should send a healing to all of Am Yisrael and the entire world, b'zchut tefillot and b'zchut all the Torah that's being learned, and b'zchut this shiur b'ezrat Hashem. So, directions from above. It's interesting that what is happening around the world right now has put a lot of questions in a lot of people's minds about a lot of things. But we need to be able to read the signs correctly and try to hear the right messages from above. It's easy to make mistakes in times like this. It's very easy to make mistakes. Because, as we know it, we could get involved in decision making emotionally, get involved in decision making in the wrong way, and what should have been or could have been will not become. There's for sure darkness in the world at this point, at this time. We are dealing with a darkness that we have not dealt with for probably many, many years, or if not, never in history has humanity dealt with such a darkness to such a degree. However, we as Jews have to realize and recognize one thing. In darkness, there are two things that could happen. There are two things that could come about during a dark time for a people. And I want to explain this to everyone according to the Ramchal in Mesilat Yesharim. The Ramchal in Mesilat Yesharim says brilliantly. Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto says, in Afela, in Choshech, in the darkness, a person could make two separate kinds of mistakes. Number one is that you're in dark and you're completely blinded by the darkness where you can't see anything at all. That's the number one thing that could happen to a person in darkness. One thing that could be caused by darkness is the fact that you can't see anything. And the number two thing is, the second thing that could occur in darkness is that you could be mistaken. You could mistake one thing for another. The example is, you could take for a fact, you could look and you see a human being, a person in front of you, and when you approach and you touch, you will realize that all along it was not a human being, it was a pole. It was a light post. And I'll add here, if the lights go on and people see you trying to shake hands with a light post, that's when people start calling you crazy. But the Ramchal doesn't say that. That was just me. So the Ramchal says, in darkness, these two things could happen. Number one is that you're completely in the dark and you're completely blinded where you can't see anything at all. Number two is, what could happen is you could see an image thinking it's one thing, Yet when you go closer, when you touch, when you feel, you will recognize that it wasn't what you thought at all. And the Ramchal says that the second of them is the worst kind. When a person touches, thinking, or sees something thinking that it's a human being, and then realizes that it was nothing but a light post, a pole, that's worse than when you're in darkness completely and you can't see anything. In order to explain this, because this is what we're going to be dealing with a lot, allow me to share a story with you all. The story is as follows. And this is not too long ago. It happened in the personal chambers of Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Sorry, give me 1 second. Story is as follows. I just want to ask everyone to please mute their microphones on Zoom. It happened in the personal chambers of Rav Chaim Kanievsky. A rabbi had a daughter. This is a different story. A Rav had a daughter. And she was a tzaddiket. She was a wonderful person. Ba'alat chesed. She was great. She had all the things that you would want in a righteous woman. And she was finally set up with a wonderful boy, a Talmid Hacham, a learned person from a great background. And they wanted this shidduch to go through. However, there was one problem. This boy had unfortunately, lo aleinu, the boy had a physical handicap. He had a limp. And it was something that he was born with. However, everything else was amazing, emotionally, mentally. He was a very bright person, but he just, this is how he was born. And the father of the bride-to-be, the father of the girl, let's not call her bride yet, the father of the girl was very okay with this. However, the mother was not okay with it at all. Her problem was, they had a perfect girl and she should have a perfect guy marry her. Why have to settle for somebody that looks like that? I know it's horrible, but this was how she felt. And she didn't want her daughter to marry this guy. And it was a lot of back and forth of going to this rabbi, to that rabbi, and to no avail. And it just so happened a few weeks later, after they unfortunately broke off the shidduch, a few weeks later, the husband, the Rav, the father of this girl, fell ill. He was sick, not feeling well, and the doctors had prescribed that he needs to be drinking hot water or tea or coffee at all times whenever he can, even when times don't allow it, during ta'anit or whatever it might be. Or, as in halachic times we say, before shacharit. Before shacharit, it's best not to drink or eat anything unless you need it. And he had a heter, obviously had permission to drink even before shacharit. Because he needed it, the doctor had prescribed that he needs to have hot water whenever possible. One morning when his wife was making him tea in bed, before he does shacharit or anything, before he gets out of bed, And the wife was against this. She was like, this is not right. You're a Rav. We go according to the Chachamim. You shouldn't be drinking right now. You shouldn't be eating right now. It's before Shacharit. As she's making this tea, she falls in the kitchen and breaks her leg. And it has to be put in a cast. And obviously, after that, she was limping. Now, what would we say? What would we say is the cause of this woman breaking her leg? I'll tell you what she said to her husband. She turned to her husband and she said, you know why this happened? It's because you decided not to wait and have tea when you shouldn't have had tea. You were having tea before Shacharit, which you shouldn't have. Even though he was mutar to do so. Even though any rabbi would have told him, no, if it's for health reasons, you must have it. But she was a machmir, she was stringent, and she was not okay with her husband not having tea before Shacharit, before Tefillah. Anybody else would have looked at this situation and said, this probably happened because she would not let a perfectly good shidduch go through because she did not like the fact that the guy had a small limp, but everything else was perfect. This was an example of what Chachamim say, a person that does not get the message from above. A person that completely misses what is being shown to them. Instead of taking to heart what is actually being told to them, what happened was the complete opposite. She completely missed the message. Rav Chaim Kanievsky was once approached by a chatan and kala to be. It was a boy and a girl that were engaged to be married. This is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever hear. Boy and a girl were engaged to be married. And they came to the Rav Chaim Kanievsky with a problem, with a she'ela, with a question. Rav Chaim, what do we do? What's the question? Unfortunately, the boy had recently been diagnosed with an illness. And the doctors had told the boy that the chances could be slim. And even if he would survive it, he would have to go through many, many months of procedures and surgeries and Barmina we should never know of. It was going to be a start of a very, very rocky road, very difficult time for this boy. So Nu, what's the question? The boy turned to Rav Chaim and said, Harav, I am not comfortable with being married right now. He did not want to marry a girl under such circumstances. He felt it's not right for a girl to become a kala and go straight into taking care of an ill husband. It's not fair to her. And he wanted to halachically break off the marriage completely. Let her free. Nothing has happened yet. She's not married yet. Why make her, a possible a widow before she even gets married, and when she can get out of it before she gets married? Okay, so here's this side. But the kala, the bride to be, also had a question. She said, no. The problem is she did not want this to happen. She said she got engaged to this boy with the kavanah, with the intent of going through with it no matter what. And she is not about to let go now. She is willing to go through and through whatever it takes she was going to do. Imagine this tzaddiket. She was willing to go through whatever it took. However many nights she has to stay awake, however much she has to take care of her husband, didn't matter. She made the decision to marry him, so be it. So this was their she'ela. What should we do? They didn't know what to do. Rav Chaim asks everyone to leave the room. And he turns to the Chatan and Kala and he says, Bezrat Hashem, with all the blessings. He gives them a huge blessing with such kavanah, and he tells them everything's going to be fine. You're going to get married, everything's going to be great, and you're going to have many, many children. Amen ken yehei ratzon. And they leave. Somebody that was there and heard the psak of Rav Chaim, he wanted to know what's going on. Like, how do you take that from this situation? Anybody else would have thought, like, this is a time to say, listen, why should a girl go into a marriage? Maybe someone else would have said, this is a sign from heaven. This is a sign from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that this should not happen. Why should she go with her own 2 feet into a life that she has no idea from the beginning? It already looks like it's going to be hardship. But the Rav Chaim in his wisdom says, no, everything's going to be great. You're going to go on, you're going to have many children. So someone that had the guts, that was in close with Rav Chaim, asked Rav Chaim, Kvod Harav, what did you base this on? I just want to know how the Rav made this decision. So he says, simple. He says, simple, I saw it from a Midrash. The Midrash says, this is a beautiful Midrash. The Midrash says there was once a king, and Alexander the Great was visiting with his king. And as he's sitting with the king, 2 people come to the king, and they have a judgment. They need the king to be a judge. They have a problem. What's the problem? So the guy says, listen, my dear king, your highness, I bought land from Mr. Yaakov. I bought land from him recently. Fair and square, I bought the land. Once I started working on the land, digging on the land, I found treasure. So the king says, no, mazel tov. He says, I bought land from Avram. Avram sold me land. I did not buy the treasure that was in the land. So my problem is he has to take this treasure. It's his treasure. Avram looks back at the king and says, Your Highness, he's wrong. When I sold my land with everything in it. And I'm okay with him having the entire thing. The treasure is his. If I had known there was treasure, I would have taken it. Fine. But now that I sold the land with everything in it. I get nothing from this treasure. It's not mine, it's his. And this was their argument. And Alexander the Great, as great as he was waiting to see how this king, in his wisdom, will judge this case. The king turns to both of them and says, any of you have a daughter? One of them says, yes. How old is she? This and this. Do you have a son? Yes. Says, okay, perfect. Match made in heaven or on land. You give your daughter to him as a wife, and the treasure that you found should be a dowry for their wedding, a gift. And both of them look at each other and they accept, and the son and the daughter obviously date, and they like each other, they get married, and they give the treasure to them. Alexander looks at this king and says, wow, that's how you judge the case? So the king says, I don't understand. How would you have judged this situation? Alexander says, well, I would have just killed both of them, taken the money for myself. That would have been it. I didn't even have to think twice. To this, the king turns and says, the fact that the sun comes out in your country every morning, it has nothing to do with the merit of the human beings there, but the animals in the trees. Which was his way of saying, Alexander, I don't know how you survive where you live, how people survive where you live with such atrocities, with such lack of chesed, kindness. Rav Chaim turns to this man and he says, I made the decision according to this Midrash. The Midrash teaches us that whenever people are ready to be mevater, meaning when people are ready to let go, when we are ready to let go of our emotions and give in for the sake of someone else, people come out winning. So much so that the Chachamim say, giving in is not a mitzvah, it's not a tzedakah, it's not charity, It's chokhmah, it's wisdom. If you knew it would be good for you, that's what you would do every time. It's like an investment proposition. If you give in when you know you're right, when you know you have the right way, and you give in, you come out winning. That's the chokhmah of it. So what did Rav Chaim really do? Rav Chaim was looking in the Torah for his answer. He didn't look at his own logic. He was looking in the Torah for the Midrashim to see how would you judge a case like this? What would you do? Should I tell this girl to stay with him or not? The only way he made his decision was through looking in the Torah. But if it was us, what would we think? Probably most of us, let's be honest. We would have said, maybe this is a sign from heaven that this shidduch should not go through. They should not get married. But we don't have that mindset to look and see what is Hashem trying to tell us. How do we figure out this situation? But as Jews, we must always look at the messages from above. As Jews, we have to look in the Torah and always try to see what is Hashem trying to tell me in this situation. That is who we are. The Gemara says in Masechet Yevamot, in Samach Gimel, Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Avina. I'm going to read the Gemara for you from inside. Just see how powerful these words are. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Avina, bar Avina. Rabbi Elazar ben Avina, the son of Avina, says, En pur'anud ba'al ha'olam ela bishvil Israel. No bad comes into the world, no sadness, pur'anut is bad situations do not happen in the world except for the Jews. Because of us. For our attention. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Hashem says in Tzefanya, in Tzefanya it says, I brought all these negativities in the world. Amarti ach tir'i oti. I said, maybe you will see me. Maybe tikhi musar, and you will take for yourself musar. Maybe you will take this as a lesson and change. These are unbelievable words in the Gemara. The Talmud directly is telling us that as Jews' job is to recognize and realize that everything that happens in the world is for me, is to get my attention. Everything around us is happening to get our attention. And the sooner we pay attention, the sooner, Bezrat Hashem, things will become better. But everything in the world happens for us. The Chachamim tell us that during the time of the destruction of the temple, if the nations of the world knew how much our tefillot mean for them, if the nations of the world knew how important our korbanot are, our services are in the Beit HaMikdash for the rest of the world, not only they would not have attacked us, they would have set up their armies all around Yerushalayim so that nothing could harm the Jews. And they would have set up guards making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Everything that happens in the world is God's way of getting our attention. So, what's happening now? What is God asking us to do? What message can we take from everything that's happening around us now? What is God asking from us? How do we find out? All we have to do is, I think, just look at the outcome of what's been going on. And truly, I think from the outcome, we can see a lot of things. We see a lot of messages in the things that have happened in the past few weeks, just a few weeks. One thing is, we have to recognize that we are being told, not just by medical professionals, but even by the chachamim of our generation, that we must absolutely have social distancing. We must, as much as we can, stay in our homes unless it's for urgent needs. And this is not just by professionals in the medical world. This is also by chachamim. That's what we're being asked all the time. Social distancing, and it's the truth. There's nothing. No one's making this up. I know some people feel that, oh my gosh, it's just the news and it's the media. It's not. We are being asked by everyone to abide by the laws of social distancing. So when we think to ourselves that we're being asked to be alone, to sit in our homes alone, which means Pesach is coming up, we're not going to be with our families. We're going to be sitting alone. Many of us are not going to work. Many people are not going to work whatsoever. Kids are not going to school. We are quarantined whether we like it or not. Now, how do we take that? What do we do with that? What does Hashem want from me? So we have two ways that we said before. The Ramchal says in a time of darkness, you could do one of two things. One of two things could happen in a time of darkness. Number one is you're in total darkness. Complete darkness. You can't see anything. Which is what a lot of times is happening. Which is what? Depression, worry of what's going to happen next. Which leads to so much more emotional fright and emotional fights and problems. Physical problems could come by it, by just being depressed and sitting in total darkness. That was number one that could happen. Number two, which the Ramchal said was even worse, was that you could grab a pole thinking that it's a human being, which is even worse than option number one. Why? Because option number one, you just don't know. You're just sitting there worried. Option number two is when you're confusing the wrong kind of message for the right kind of message. You're thinking you're grabbing onto a human being, you're socializing with a human being when it's actually a pole. Which is what unfortunately happens a lot. In total darkness, times like this, people grab onto the wrong things. I finished the entire 9 series of Seinfeld on this, or I finished on Netflix, I finished on Friends, and you could just be Netflixing through the entire thing, thinking that this is what this was meant for. Being in our homes alone was meant for us to sit all day and all night long, not to be depressed, chas v'shalom, but making do of time. Really using our time for the positive, for positive, which means what? Watching our different shows that we missed on, getting the lack of sleep that we've had, sleeping in until wee hours of the afternoon. That's grabbing the pole. Or other things. Blaming China, blaming this, blaming that. It's a virus. It's been here before. The percentages are low. Who cares? You're grabbing the pole. You're not recognizing the ultimate truth of what Hashem really is wanting from us. And if we do, what's going to happen next? If we miss it, what's going to come next? If the virus doesn't do it, what will? What's going to wake us up? Or we have option number 3. What's option number 3? We can see it as the message as it is. And take this as an opportunity like it is. This is an opportunity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us an opportunity that we haven't seen in God knows how long. To be able to be alone with no distractions. No going out of the house. Being with family. Taking the opportunity to be with ourselves. Really within ourselves. When was the last time we had that opportunity? To do some itbodetu, to really bring ourselves to meditate on the idea of what my path is in this world. What is my true mission? We have no excuse. There is no going out. There's no partying. This is a time that we have to take as an opportunity to grow. Not only in our families, not only in our relationships between each other at home, but to fix the relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our source, which is truly the purpose of life. Instead of taking this huge opportunity given to us and wasting it on Netflix. This is what Hashem wants. We have to see it clearly and use it. Family, self-recognition, closeness to Hashem. These are the things that we really have to work on. Everybody knows Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Everybody knows Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, HaKadosh. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was in a cave for 13 years. 13 long years he had to run away from the king that wanted to kill him. So he was hidden in a cave, and we know the miracles that happened for him in the cave. He had to eat carobs, and there was a river of water going beneath his feet, and that's where he got water, and he survived on carobs and water. And unbelievably, 13 years, all he did was learn Torah. After 13 years, when he came out, when he was finally free from that dungeon, the cave that he was in, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair took him to the bathhouse to wash him and clean him up. And as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai takes off his clothes, and his father-in-law, who was Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, sees his body with all the intrusions and with all the scratches and all the wounds that he had on his body for being in a cave and being underground. He gives out a sign. He says, "Woe unto me that I have to see you like this, Rabbi Shimon." And Rabbi Shimon says, "Oh, how great is Hashem that I am zocheh that you see me like this. I have the merit that I'm like this." What was he really saying? What was Rabbi Shimon saying? What we know from the Gemara is that before Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went into the cave, his father-in-law was a very great person. But his father-in-law was greater than him too, greater than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. After Rabbi Shimon comes out of the cave, we see instances when his father-in-law is learning from him, which tells us one thing. When Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came out of the cave, he was even greater than when he went in. He was much greater than when he went in. So Rabbi Shimon afterwards was saying, it's a zechut for me that you see me like this, because you don't understand what I gained by the fact that I was alone for 13 years. He used that opportunity. Now, Rav Zamar Cohen puts this beautifully. He says, you think if they would have asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai beforehand, hey, would you like to go and live in a cave alone for 13 years and eat only carobs and water and survive on that alone? I don't know what he would have said. Do we know Rabbi Shimon would have said, oh, great, that would be wonderful, such a great opportunity? I don't know if that's what he would say. But the fact is, that's what happened. He was put into a cave. And that's what Hashem wanted. And he accepted that. And instead of sitting in total darkness, what did he do? He used it as an opportunity to build on. And oh boy, did he build. What we have today in Kabbalah is from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the world without it? And that was only because Rabbi Shimon used the opportunity of his quarantine, of him being secluded, to really do some inner finding and to grow, to get closer to Hashem. So many people in times like these are asking the question, is this the end? Oh, Rabbi, is this the end? This is it? Are we done? Is this the end of the world? What's going to happen? Is this Moshiach? Is Moshiach coming? Is Moshiach here? People say they've seen Moshiach. What we really have to think is, let's not worry as much about whether this is the time of Moshiach or not. Let's not worry as much about whether this is the end or not. Perhaps what we should really be thinking about is where we will be when Moshiach comes. Not whether this is the end or not, but whether we are ready for the end. Because if Moshiach comes, and a lot of us are still in that total darkness, holding on to that pole of Netflix and politics and blaming fingers, and not recognizing truly this as the opportunity as it is to grow and bring us to the next level, then what difference does it make whether this is the end or not? We'll be the same person that we are now then. And this opportunity would have been a huge waste. So let's say, for argument's sake, this is the time of Moshiach, which it is, Bezrat Hashem. But what's important is not to dwell on the fact that whether it is or not and get worried and go crazy. Do we need to move now? What we really need to think about is, where will I be when Moshiach comes? What level will I be on in my connection to Hashem when that time comes? Did I truly use all the opportunities given to me to get close to Hashem? Did I truly use my time on this world, on this earth, for the purpose that I was given? And that is truly, as the Ramchal says, to get closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. May we all be zocheh to the coming of Moshiach Tzidkenu bimhera v'yamenu. Amen keni ratzon. If there's no questions, we will end it here. I don't believe there is. Okay. No questions. Okay. Hazaku Baruch, everyone. Bezrat Hashem. Until next time. Hazaku Baruch. Kol Tuv. My pleasure. You're welcome. Have a wonderful night.